welcome to a special edition of the Christy Taylor Show. Our guest for this evening is Dom Skinner, an author, actress, poet, speaker, and more. Dominique Dom Skinner was born and raised in Washington, D.C., my birth city. Her biological father was in Jamaica, and her biological father was in Jamaica, and her biological mother was struggling to stay afloat with so many children. Now, she eventually would be taken in by her track coach and his wife, her adoptive parents. Now, Dom had every intention to save lives as a doctor, yet her path changed courses and sent her down the road of clinical psychology, where she spent years in youth development and mentorship. When she decided to leave her comfort zone to follow her visions, Dom started her acting journey in Los Angeles, California. Dom is an actress, poet, speaker, mentor, educator, and filmmaker, and now she's adding her latest title, author. I want you to help me welcome to the special edition of the Christy Taylor Show, Dom Skinner. Happy Friday, lady.
Hello.
Wow, all of that is you. All of that is you.
I know, right? All of that is me.
You know, there are so many layers to that, and you are definitely somebody that I'm like, okay, I cannot wait to have an actual conversation, because just reading up about you, checking out your website, I was like, ooh, wait, my kind of chick. Now, let me kind of get a bearing. You were born in D.C.,
yes.
You know, so a single mom, father still in Jamaica. So you have that Caribbean vibe going on. Kind of give me a, yeah. So, yes. So what was it like growing up in DC, you know, with Jamaican roots?
It was very interesting. While my mother is not Jamaican, but she made sure that we most definitely was known of our Jamaican roots. Like, it was always reggae music playing in my home. She cooked all of the Jamaican food. She spoke patois, and it was so interesting. Most people thought my mom was Jamaican. So, and whenever she would like drive around the corner, my mom always loved music, and her music was always loud. And they were like, "Oh, we know Miss Phillips coming around the corner," because it was always reggae playing. And don't let her get upset if you were sitting on her porch, because she was going to most definitely speak patois, and people were like, Jamaican's crazy. And it was just hilarious. But growing up in the city, there were so many Jamaicans. My mom always had Jamaican friends come to our house as well. So it just felt like we were always around our culture.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing. Now, so what was your mom if she wasn't Jamaican?
She's American, like so American. But you would never know it, because she most definitely speaks very good patois and cooks the food, and she relates. But my mom grew up in a small town called Tarboro, North Carolina. But while she was born there, she was raised in DC.
Understood. So you have that Southern rule. So what was your relationship to those other cousins in the South?
Oh, we saw them every summer.
So you were there.
Yes, my mother did not, she didn't believe in idle time during the summer. So she shipped us down to Tarboro, North Carolina every summer, at the least a week, but at the most like 3 weeks. She was just like, "Oh, y'all gotta go." So we also have a really tight-knit family. So I know almost all of my cousins.
As a matter of fact, you have a cousin who was speaking, Cassandra. Hey,
cousin.
I love that. And of course, we have a lot of great people. Hey, TC is in the house. Thank you so much for making this happen, TC. And D, you got kinfolk in the house. What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Now,
sister, say hey.
Oh, that's your sister. Hey, sis. I love it. Now, of course, with you growing up East Coast, with yet having Jamaican and some Southern roots, how did that influence you as, you know, your aspirations and your dreams? Because we do know in the storyline, you know, there's a little hardship that happens in the midst of all this.
Yeah. So in my family, in my mother's house, it was all about education. Okay. And because of all of the things that my mom went through, she knew that her main priority for us was that we get our education. And she used to always say to us, just because we live in a hood, that does not mean that you get to act like you're hood in these streets. So
Ooh,
she was that
yeah.
mother that wanted to make sure that we tapped into our potential. So she was like, every one of you are graduating high school. And
Mhm.
also for my mother, for me, she was like, I was told I was going to be a doctor by the time I was 3. She was like, oh, she's gonna
Okay.
be a doctor. She said she was going to be a doctor, so she's going to be a doctor. And I was like, whoa. So everyone in my family, every time my report card came in and it was straight A's, everyone was like, oh yeah, because she's going to be a doctor. Because she's going to be a doctor.
Dr. Dominique, Dr. Dominique.
Yeah, that's what they said. That's that doctor. She gonna make the family proud. So I hope that I'm making the family proud, although I am not a doctor.
You did not become a doctor, but I tell you, you got a lot of family in the house. What else is this?
Sade,
Another
my
sister?
sister.
Yes. Oh, sister in the house. I love it. All right. Yes, great motto. Yes, indeed. You can be in the hood, but not act like the hood in these streets. I mean, pretty much, we were born in DC, but my mom being from the South as well had a lot of that Southern sensibility, and that environment should not dictate your behavior. Just
Absolutely.
because you were, without certain luxuries or zip codes didn't mean that you couldn't aspire to greater. So with you being on the path to being Dr. Dominique Skinner, when did you start shifting? Was it in high school, college? What happened?
To this career as
Yeah.
a storyteller now? Oh
No,
no.
the clinical psychologist.
Oh, so that happened in college.
Okay.
Honestly, while I never said anything, I knew that I did not want to be a doctor my 10th grade in high school.
Okay.
I had the pleasure of being elected to, it was an enrichment program at George Washington University for emerging medical school students. And I was in 10th grade and I got accepted to be in this program. And I was learning physiology and anatomy. I hated it. And I do not want to do this. And it was a small group of people, of youth, and everyone was excited. And they had stories about how they were going to be doctors, what kind of doctors. I made up something. I was like, I'm going to be an obstetrician. I'm going to deliver babies. The whole time I was like, get me out of here. And instead of me being honest, because I didn't know what else there was for me, because this was a self-fulfilling prophecy almost, I continued. And then I went on to college, pre-med and biology. First semester, I was like, something has to change. I cannot do this. And I changed my major to psychology, honestly, because I'm going to be transparent, thinking it was going to be easier.
Right. And actually, yes. Right. Yeah.
Nah. And the way I convinced my parents, all of them, when I was telling them I was changing my major, I said, well, no, I'm going to still be a doctor. I'm just going to be a doctor of the mind.
Well, this is a good. Still, you're a doctor. Okay, we can still accept that. We can accept that. But in that, actually, psychology really does. Hey, sis, another sis in the house.
Oh, the sister, hey.
I love your kinfolk, honey. I'm coming hang out with y'all. Oh, auntie in the house. It's Erin. Hi, auntie.
Oh,
It's
that's
Erin.
my niece.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so college, you realize like, okay, I'm gonna be a doctor of the mind.
Yeah.
So you pursue that. What were some of the things that really stood out to you about human psychology that will eventually lend into some of what you're doing today?
A lot of it was just how we think and where it comes from. Mm-hmm. A lot of it, when I was in undergrad, of course, we learned about Freud, and it was always about the parents and things like that. And in my mind, I was like, this don't make sense, but okay, let me get this A.
Yeah.
And by the time I was in my senior year, I actually started to really fall in love with how our minds work and how we actually relate in ways of like from the world, and also how we were raised, how the world has an effect on us. And then I went on to grad school like, oh, I really want to do this thing.
Right.
And also to correct, I'm not actually a doctor because I did not finish my doctorate degree.
Okay.
I did finish my master's, but something happened where I did not finish my doctorate degree. So,
well, I want to kind of rewind because one of the things that really stood out in your bio was the fact that at some point you apparently ran track,
Yeah.
and you were adopted by your track coach.
Yes, yes.
Let's
So
run back, because of course it sounds like you have a really strong network of family, but can you add that layer of adoption in there? How does that, what happened?
so my mom, my biological mom, who the book is about,
Yeah.
she was, I talk about all of the things that she went through. And while I did not understand this, because children do not understand adult business, if we're honest,
Yeah.
um, in that my mom showed up in a way that I felt that I wasn't loved and I wasn't
Mhm.
nurtured. And these are, of course, how I felt. Now, in reality, there were, when you read the book, you're like, whoa, she was a mother that was a single mother who was doing her best. But on
Right.
my end, as a child receiving, I was not receiving love. I was not being heard. I wasn't being seen. And so, in some ways, I was passive aggressive. I was angry. And when I was running track at Johnson Junior High School in DC, I kind of withdrew a little bit, but track
Mhm.
was one of those things where I gave a lot of my attention and I really didn't want to go home. And my
Mm.
mom, like a lot of mothers, when you are frustrated, you're doing this by yourself and you're trying to make ends meet, you're sacrificing a whole lot. She was often angry or she was yelling or hitting me and things like that. And so we had this very combative relationship. So I never really wanted to go home. And my coach, my dad now, Von Perry, um, he didn't really know, but it was easy for me to talk to him. And he knew that I felt safe in
Right.
that atmosphere. So he introduced me to his wife, who was like the track mom. And she would always come to the track meets, make us sandwiches. And one day he asked me if I wanted to help her at her salon because she did hair and be her shampoo assistant on the days that we didn't have long practices. My mom trusted them. My mom normally didn't trust us around men. She's like, nah, not my daughters. But she, for some reason, trusted Von Perry, my coach. And so she said yes and allowed me to spend some of my evenings at the shop. So Crystalline and Von Perry, my parents, my adopted parents, they adopted me into their family. So I wasn't legally adopted until year 6. So my mom didn't just give me up. She didn't say, well, child, this is hard, like, so I basically had a gang of parents, and I say that now, and I have a gang of parents. I grew up in the house with my biological mother, but I also grew up in the Perry's household as well. So in
Wow.
my adolescent years, between ages 12 up until now, I had this split house. So I had split perspectives on life, because in one house I was with my single mother doing her best to make ends meet, and she did a great job, by the way, to make ends meet and to sacrifice a whole lot so that we could have. And then on the other end, in another household, I had a two-parent household where
Mm.
I loved on. And while my mom still made sure financially I was good, they poured into me in the areas of my emotions, my
Your
love.
emotional space. Right.
I made
Right.
sure that I was seen. So
Hmm.
while I didn't recognize it then, and in hindsight, what I'm able to realize now is I had the best of both worlds. But because I was in this traumatic space with my mother, I couldn't recognize her sacrifices. But I would honor where my parents were able to step in for me.
Mm.
And when I say parents, of course, I'm talking about my adopted.
Right. Yeah. This is so good. This is so good. And I know once we get into your journey into storytelling and all the ways that you are a storyteller, all of this lends to the substance and the subtext that we need as creatives. And I just want to just pause for a moment because I see that we got a nice little chat going on. Sade say your grandma crying, and Christine Covington, so proud of you. There's just a lot of love in the room tonight, and I can tell just from the very fact that you had an expanded family, and part of the time, I think I would say in the African diaspora, we actually used to have that as a natural,
Yes.
as the village would raise and be a support to, and in the deep South, even in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that still was very, very present. Of course, the more we begin to, split away and move away, we lost a lot of that 3 and 4 deep family structure.
Mm-hmm.
So once you begin to, appease, I guess, your soul with one family and begin to understand my single mom is doing the best she can to make sure we're well fed, clothed, sheltered, so to speak. How did you start to reconcile that with your? Because I mean, there's a lot of love. That's why I wanted to make that point. There's a lot of love with your other siblings and extended family. How did they initially process you having, let's say, the best of both worlds?
Honestly, no one actually cared, if I'm honest. Okay. So, and I say this because my family is huge. Like my family is huge. My grandmother was one of 13. All of her and her siblings were close. So my mom and all of her cousins and siblings were close. And my mother is a storyteller, by the way. So the reason I was able to write this book is because my mother shared so many stories. And it wasn't like, gather around, kids, let's tell this story. No, like she would tell some of these stories when she was frustrated. She would tell some of these stories just, we would drive to Ohio to see my grandfather and one of my grandmothers. And it's like an 8-hour drive from DC. And so she would yell at us the entire time. But she was telling stories the whole time, just at an elevated voice, because she was angry at something one of us did. So if one of us was in trouble, we were all in trouble. But we got these stories over and over because she's a storyteller, right? And everyone in my family, every cookout, every family reunion, someone is telling us a story about something because it's a lot of them and things happened. But my family was open arms to my additional parents. So my family is very close. It's a blended family.
Yeah.
Like my adopted parents would come to my aunt's house for a cookout, and like things will happen at my parents' house, and my sisters and everybody will come through. It was a blended family. Mm-hmm. And to this day, my family still call my dad Coach. Or they'll call him dad, but they know, like, there was never any jealousy amongst my sisters. Yeah. Because I'm the youngest, and my sisters also made space for me to be great. For them, it was, she has to be great. And they kept pouring into me. Don't let me be somewhere I'm not supposed to be. Like, that's not even your
the head tilt, side eye. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, now we have Brian Harper. Hello, my beautiful niece. Also, looking forward to seeing you next week. Family reunion, hookups, all that kind of get together stuff is happening. So as a clinical psychologist in your early life, after you have followed that path and you have this amazing, of course, everything in itself lends to our growth and evolution. So how does all of what you're telling me end up with you changing careers?
Wow. So my best friend, I don't know, she may or may not be here. She may still be at work. My best friend, Brittany, the day I met her was the first day of 10th grade. Did not know this girl. We were on the bus. DC, you don't have school buses. You get on the public transportation. I was on a W4 going to H.G. Woodson High School, first day. I don't know what I was saying on this bus I don't know, but she said, you should be an actress. And I was like, what? I don't even know you. And I was like, I'm an athlete. But since that day, she had been telling me I should act. And I didn't understand what she was saying because she would always say, you're funny. I was like, but I didn't say a joke. But what I realized later was she was saying that I was a great storyteller. Yeah. And while I was in my career, I was working as a director for this company in DC. And while I loved the work I was able to do in the city, I hated my job. I was stressed out. And every chance she got from the time we met on that bus when I was 14 years old to that moment in 2018, she said, you should be acting. You should be acting. You should be acting. Oh my God, my friend is dope. She should be an actress. And I was breaking down highs because I was so stressed at work. And we lived together at the time. And she said, if I pay for your first act class, would you go? Because you have to stop this. This is not it, friend. I know you like it. People tell you should do it, but this is not it. And I said, well, if you pick girl, I'll go. Thinking she was joking. But in that moment, she turned my computer around, started looking up acting classes in DC. And she was like, all right, we're going. And I was like, what did I do? But I loved it. I loved it. I went. It was very entry level, but I felt free. I didn't feel like I was forcing anything or trying to be someone I wasn't. I was just free. And then I decided, not right after, but a little after, I think I want to do this. If I only get one life, or I get to experience one life at a time, why am I just existing?
Yeah.
I would like to live my life. So let me do it. Not for anyone else, but for me.
You know, with you having done clinical psychology and being able to, as you say, be a doctor of the mind, even though you got the master's, to be able to probe life experiences in your work.
Mm-hmm.
How did that lend to your transition into, because I have a undergrad in theater, so the Meisner technique, living truthfully in imaginary circumstances and infusing a character with your being. How did that actually lend to your adapting and swimming in the waters of acting?
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great, and then it wasn't.
Oh,
Okay, so
give me the dark side. Give me the dark side.
The dark side is I was too analytical. I was in my head often because I'm used to sitting, watching, observing, listening, and then taking moments to craft what I need to say to give back. An improv class, that is not a thing. It is.
You have no time. You have no time you have no time for the dominoes to make their circle. Yes.
No, you have to be on it. And the same thing in some of my scene studies classes. I'm in a scene, and while I've already cultivated this character, I know the psychology of the character. I did all of the analysis of this character. Being the character was something I had to really work at, because they would say something, my partner would say something, my scene partner, and again, I'm in my head. And I'm like, I'm in the theory of how this character should be, opposed to being the character. So while it was great because I was able to really analyze the character, what are the things that's not being said in this scene, and how can I bring that to life? On the other side, I was bringing it to life really slow. my teachers would be like, take the air out. Take the air out. Take the air out.
I love that. I love that. So, okay, it's one thing to say, I'm going to act. You could maintain your professional career and crafted an entire side hustle of acting. What made you actually walk away from your career to pursue acting as a career?
I wasn't going to fully do it.
Okay.
You have to know yourself. That my good friend Sarnisha would say, rule number 1, know thyself.
Know thyself.
I know me. I was not going to do it. If I would have done it part-time. I was also coaching at the time. And I just have this thing about community, giving back, all of that. And I'm working around the clock. I am a coach. And I knew that I would do this so part-time that it wouldn't be real. And I was in my comfort zone. I was making decent money. I had a lifestyle that I really liked. And I was like, if I don't get out of my comfort zone, I won't actually grow.
Right.
I will still be living for the accolades and the titles and the praise, but I won't really do it. And I knew that I needed to really humble myself in it. I knew that I needed to move away to do it. And I said that if I'm going to act, I want to craft. I want to master my craft. I don't want to be like any other actress. I want to master me. And so I said, I know that it's going to take work. So let me just do it. Not half-time, not part-time. I was like, I got to do it. I got to have faith, because I was like, I feel like God had been telling Brittany to tell me this. So, okay, I'm going to trust God in this, and I'm going to go do it. I'm not going to play around. And it was a struggle. I mean, it was bold.
I mean, because even though you had a successful career, you probably had a little savings. When you make that trek to LA, what happens?
The word is humble. That is the word. The word is faith. There are words, and I'll just say the words: faith and being humble. And I had to learn how to crawl before I walked. I was already in a place where I was very young, but I had a lot of success. And this was a place where I knew nothing. And so I was like, I need to be an infant in this so I can learn and that I can absorb everything that I can. And that was me being humbled. And in my finances, I had to learn to manage my finances. I was used to having Amazon packages coming to my apartment every week, multiple times a week, about nothing, giving away stuff, buying a whole bunch of stuff, going wherever I wanted. And this actually caused me, how do you be responsible with your finances? How do you show up fully yourself? Take the makeup off, the mask off, the clothes off, the labels off, all of those, the titles. And then I had to do my work. Who am I really? That's actually what happened. Past the money, past the titles, it was, I had to truly see myself. And that's actually where the healing started. I thought I was good when I came out of here or came out to LA, but I really wasn't. I really wasn't. And the book is a journey of my, or product of me being on this journey of healing. When I came out here, I had to see myself. How am I showing up? I had to be aware of certain things. And like I said, my faith became stronger. So that was more of the testimony, is who I became.
How did the acting work toward your healing that leads to the book? I'm hearing you connect them, and how does that happen? What
The
really
acting didn't. It wasn't the acting itself. It was where I was. What choosing to be an actress and remove myself from my career, what that did. Like I said, I needed to be humbled in ways where I am praying more, I am journaling more, I am really showing up. I am really seeing myself show up in certain ways. So I will be in class and I'm learning things about myself. Oh, I'm a perfectionist. Why? So all of my training I was doing on myself, trying to figure out what was it that was coming up for me and why was I in this place being stuck emotionally. And then things started coming up in my journaling and my prayer time and my meditation time. And I was like, wow, there are broken pieces of me that need to start coming together.
Wow.
And I thought I was good. I'm going to say that again. I thought I was good, but I was not. And during the pandemic and living by myself, reading different books and just journaling, and things are coming up. And I was like, whoa, I have work to do.
And the very fact that you had the skill set as a clinical psychologist, not that you doctored on yourself from that perspective, because you always, every coach needs a coach, every mentor needs a mentor. How did you, though, were you gentle with yourself? Were you patient with yourself, which like you would be a client, or did you rush the process? Because the pandemic it magnified a lot of things in all of us. Yeah. So how did you approach yourself?
I didn't know that the process was happening, if I'm honest, because I wasn't intentional about the process. I wasn't like, oh, this is a really great time for me to work on me. I wasn't. To be honest, I'm gonna call a spade a spade. I was not thinking, because again, I thought I was good. I thought I had done my work, but there were still patterns coming up. And as I was sitting and I was reading and I was journaling and I was like, oh, I see myself differently. And so it started with some effective communication. It started with actually sharing my feelings, and I was not 100% patient with myself. But what I will say is I have a beautiful team around me. I have a beautiful village who love on me in the process and tell me, hey, take it easy, man, wait. But not don't do the work. It's give yourself grace. So it wasn't me doing it alone. I just have a beautiful community and village that's reminding me to take it easy. And it wasn't rushed, because I don't like to say that I'm healed. There's no actual destination. It's a process.
Yes.
That's still coming up. I'm still having breakthrough.
Yeah. Dom, the storytelling aspect, and as you say, as an actor or any creative person, we tend to go deep within ourselves and like explore, like, oh, there's a trap door. Oh, wow, there's drapes in the back with a wall behind it. So we pull on that for our creativity. I think, though, I'm finding your story interesting because out of this healing, you become a storyteller like your mom. You become a poet. You become, you're starting to use the magic of words. Let's talk about that and how that leads to you becoming an author.
I don't know how many times I have to say this, y'all, but I didn't want to write the book. I had a vision back in 2017 about a book about mother-daughter relationships, and I was like, God, what is this? No, I don't even have a healthy relationship with my biological mother, so you can't be talking to me, and this can't be mine. But my mom and I actually had a conversation in 2018 that started the process of us actually having a better relationship. It just started the process. It didn't just happen. And being in this space that I was talking about, where I was reading and doing the self work and all of those things, the vision came back up. It came back up early in the year, last year. And I wrote it on the board, the title of the book, Let's Talk, and the chapter names of the book. And I was like, oh, this book must be about effective communication. and I wrote it on my board. I am in the process of writing a script. And I was like, I have goals about pitching in the fall. And one of my buddies, I was part of this program or organization called Momentum Education. Really great. Y'all should go check them out. But I had a buddy, accountability partner, and someone else, 3 different people at 3 different times said, write the book. I didn't know how they knew what was on my board. They'd never been in my apartment. It's COVID. Y'all ain't coming to my apartment. I don't even know y'all. Y'all across the world somewhere. But my buddy at that moment said, write the book. And I literally looked back, saw the book title on my whiteboard, and said, okay, God, that must be you talking to me. I'm going to write the book. But I was writing a book on effective communication, and I was going to talk about how I used effective communication to help my mom and our relationship. And to help us get to a certain point where we are effectively communicating now. We are having a little grace with each other now. And I sent one of my accountability partners, a different accountability partner, the one who did my book cover. She's amazing. Her name is Jessica. I sent it to her. She was like, I'll be a beta reader for you. And she read the first 4 chapters because I was like, oh, I can do this, effective communication. This is what I do. Sent it to her, and friend said, I love the way you tell stories, except why do I want to read this book? I don't really care. You said something. And I was like, whoa, hold up. Everybody stop. What do you mean you don't care? And she was like, no, I was like, I don't care. Why do I want to read it? And then she said, but then you said something about your mother, and I wanted to know more about that. And I said, oh, well, I'm not writing about that. Ooh. I wasn't ready because I hadn't really done the work that I said that I had done. And I took a moment, a weekend, to really think about it. And then I started journaling about it. And like, okay, God, what is this really? Because my ego was bruised. We're going to be honest here. My ego was bruised.
Like when somebody says, I mean, as a creative, I don't want to read this. I've written a script that I haven't finished because somebody was like, the characters are not interesting. Well, the lead character, the subplot is better than the main plot. I was like, okay, I'll let it just sit on my laptop for 10 years.
So I let it sit for a weekend now because what is this thing? So
I did some other things in the meantime. But that script, one of my girlfriends literally just called me and said, can we work on Loren? I mean, the script has a name that she's personified at this point. It's almost like, hey, let's talk to Dom. I mean, like literally. So you took a weekend to reflect, to say, I got to do this.
Well, no, I started journaling. I never really said yes to this. I started journaling. And as I was journaling, the story of my birth came up. And that was interesting for me. So I started typing it out because I always have like little journals around and I'm always writing, handwriting. It's therapeutic for me. But then I took out my laptop and I just started writing. And as I was writing the story, as my mom told me about my birth, and I reread it and I was like, oh, this is the book. And then I started talking about her and I was like, oh, wow. And then the book started to actually happen. And then as I'm writing my mother's story, as she told me, as I remembered her telling me, that's when the sub-chapter came, changing the narrative and seeing my mother as human, because I started to see her as human. Yeah. So the book was unfolding. There was no like plan for it. It just started unfolding, and I kept praying and meditating and saying to myself, this must be something. God, what is it? So I finished it. And I did it. And I said, well, I'm just going to be obedient and I'm going to leave it there because I got a script I need to get back to. I just got to talk about this script.
Oh. However, the book was like, no, I need to be released first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So since you released the book, and I know that you and your mom and you, with the family that you have that's hanging out with us, I know it, there's been a lot of love with you doing this. How did your mom, process, number one, what you wrote, and then the release of the book?
So when I told her that I was writing the book, she was not a fan. And we're just going to call a spade a spade. Friend was not a fan. Okay. She was like, what? Like, nah. And I said that because I did another interview and I actually said what she said. And I was like, well, let me explain why my mom was not a fan. In my family, and not just my family, a lot of Black families, we do secrecy is a thing, right? We hide certain things underneath the rug and we highlight the good, right? We don't really talk about the bad. And so what my mom thought when I was writing this book was that I was just going to be airing out all the dirty laundry in our family. And she was like, oh, no. Yeah. And I was like, God told me to write it, but it's actually not what you're thinking. Right. And trying to explain it to her, but it didn't hit. It just didn't hit. And so we would have difficult conversations about this book and her feelings about it. And I had to be obedient. And she didn't understand what it was. And I was like, you know what? I can't keep explaining it. I have to do what God told me to do because I realized it's not about me. It's not about me and it wasn't about her. It was about what God wanted to do through our story with everyone else. And it's an offer for people to hear. And that's what I started looking at it as. And when she finally got the book, she got her book after some people got their books. And family members. So they're calling her auntie. Oh my goodness. Hey girlfriend, let me tell you. And she's like, don't tell me about this book. Don't tell me about this book. I got to read it myself. And she kept saying, what is in this book that they keep calling me with tears and joy? And I'm like, I was crying. I was laughing. So she's calling me like, listen, your book just came in the mail. I ain't going to read it till the weekend. I was like, okay. She called me 30 minutes later and told me that the book was looking at her, looking at it. So she picked it up.
I love that.
And so she was like, I'm about to just start reading the book. And I was like, you don't have to even tell me. Just do it. And she called me after every chapter because she was processing with me. And I was like, I don't have to be part of this. But what I realized in that moment is she got to be vulnerable with me.
Yes.
And the things that she was feeling about the book. There was times where she was like, oh my God, I can't believe you remember that. Oh my God. And then she was like, what? You was really, what? Hope? But when she finished, I kept saying, Mom, finish the book. Yeah. Finish it. I get it. It's about you. None of us want anyone to actually see our full story. That's why we give people our highlight reels. And I was also sharing with her, Mom, I'm humanizing you. There's so many women like you. There's so many fathers like you that's doing their best. There's so many children like me who felt like they weren't being heard. They feel like their parents were the superheroes that didn't show up for them. Meanwhile, you're not alone. I'm not alone. And someone needs to know that no matter what, they're still worthy. They're still enough. And so I realized that my mom was doing her best so that we saw that she was enough. I was doing things to get attention because I didn't think I was enough. That's what the book and the story is about.
Girl, powerful.
When she finished the book, she called me crying and she said, "He needs to read this book."
I love it. Who is on the phone? Put my mother on the phone. Put my mom on the phone.
Hello? It's like, everyone needs to read this book. I don't care if you are a parent yet, but everyone was someone's child who felt like there was something missing from their parent.
Yeah.
That actually made me cry. And they were thug tears. And I was like, oh, she got it. She got it.
Wow. Obedience is so important in life, even with the challenges. Yeah, there's so many stories in our lives that can heal others. And I'm super excited that you decided to share you and your mom's story with the world. Brian, yeah, I'm loving it too. I am loving this. I mean, this is, yeah. Oh, Christine says she called me. She was so proud.
That's my mom's sister and brother. That's my.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. There's so much love and healing that needs to happen in our families, and it's a journey. I'm a little taste older than you, and I can definitely tell you that throughout my life, these similar type of experiences, and the work has to be done. There's still so much more love in our hearts for each other that sometimes
Mhm.
we don't have a chance to explore
Yeah.
until we do this kind of work. Wait a minute. Okay, Christy Brown. First of all, she spells her name like I used to spell mine. Uh, Christy, you have such a warm and fun interview style. Oh, thank you,
Too.
thank you. Your questions are poignant and get to the heart of who Dom is, where she's been, and where she's going. Thanks for that. Oh well, thank you for blessing me with that compliment. I really appreciate that. I have always had a joy of. People used to say I was nosy. I just said I was inquisitive. And
That's
I just
what
want to
you do.
know, you know, because Christy Brown, and one reason why I'm this way is linking to what you're talking about. That sense of feeling, I felt I was seen but unheard. And oftentimes I was unseen. I was extremely quiet as a child, not shy, but quiet. And oftentimes people who knew me from my childhood, when we moved from Washington, D.C. down south, so there was a cultural shock in that because we literally went from the concrete jungle to the deep rural south. And if you're in the deep rural south, where my grandfather had an outhouse and a whale and chickens and stuff, and dirt roads and gravel, first of all, it's a culture shock. And then people had larger families, and my mom only had 3 children. So, and I'm a middle child. So I had to find a lot of solace within myself. So oftentimes I protected myself by reading books, staying in the house.
Mm.
And so when I became older and started saying within myself, I have something to say. I have something to say. So people like, how did Christy become a media personality? But I also knew that even the most talkative person is me. They may be talking loud or the quietest person in the room, but we all have something we want to say. There's layers to all of us. And then once I got into entertainment, I literally saw the duality of people. You saw the person performing on stage. And if you've been in this game a long time, those same people literally could go backstage and their life could be in shambles. And I would be like, how is that possible? Like everybody has a story. There's layers to all of us. So many layers. I mean, there's
Mhm.
layers to me. And people are like, girl, you need to write a book. I'm like, ooh, I'm not. I ain't got up to Dom's courage yet. Ooh, Jesus. Oh God, he ain't
Oh,
told me to do that yet. But
story.
I think I communicated through gifting like this in writing, other ways. Poetry. Oh, I'm a poet, baby. You're a poet. I was like, oh, a fellow poet. Let's talk about how did you get to your storyline? And of course, you wrote the book, but your other stories is in poetry. You got to listen. Can you spit a little bit before we wrap this up?
I'm not really good at freestyling.
Oh, okay, well, then don't worry about it then. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yes, Brian, peeling that onion layer at a time, and it can be painful, and it brings those tears down. Indeed. Well, you know something. Well, who are some of your favorite poets, or how did you come to poetry? I should say.
So a lot of this I did not know. I did not know that I was any, I thought I was just this smart athlete that
Yeah.
sometimes was funny. That was it.
Yeah.
The poetry came as part of my healing. Funny thing is, I actually wrote a poem and it was published in a book poems when I was in the 6th grade. Someone reminded me of that a few years ago, and I was like, really? Don't know where this book is. Don't even know the name of it, but they reminded me, and I was like, that did happen in an English class. However, poetry and writing, words have always been my thing. While you talked about how you would go and read books, I would read as well, but I will also write. I will always write little stories down, or I will write things down and I would just leave them somewhere. But I didn't always keep journals until I got a little older. And the poetry came out recently as I was going through this process of healing. I will write out things and I was like, oh man, this is good. This is really good. And then I started to share it. I shared some of them on my Instagram, and then, but a lot of them is just in this little book. And I don't know what I'm waiting on, why I haven't shared them yet, but it's been giving me so much joy to use my words. I've always been a person about analogies. I did an interview yesterday and I was bringing up all the analogies and I was like, I don't know why they won't stop. But in my poetry, it's a lot of analogies. And it came about in a way that helped me deal with my true feelings.
Yeah.
Because we actually talked about, or you said something about how we show up, but one of the things that was really difficult for me to see was how many masks I wore to pretend to be okay. Like those people on stage and then they behind the set or when they go backstage, life is different. That's how I was showing up in my real life. When I was in my bedroom, it was coming apart. But in front of everyone, I had it all figured out. I can speak what I need to speak. Again, my background allowed me the ability to talk about things in a way that was very convincing. I would be in therapy trying to tell my therapist nothing was wrong, and she's looking at me like, I get paid by the hour, baby. Like, I'm trained like you.
Right. I know all the signs, honey, all of them. And I'm so glad that I'm talking to someone who has had that history, because I do advocate mental health. And I remember living in Detroit at a time in my early mid-20s, and I was basically, my life was coming undone from who I had been raised to be, and living in Detroit away from family, and who I was becoming within the confines of my Christian environment. But one of my friends who wasn't as churched as me, she was like, you need to go to therapy. I was like, oh, we pray, honey, we pray.
The Lord.
And I am so glad. I was probably around 24, 25 the first time I went to therapy. And she said, you can, because I was only idea I had was, what I saw on television. She said, no, you can get any type, age, gender, whatever. So I, quote unquote, ordered an older Black woman. I said, I needed somebody who has lived through all of what I'm going through. I don't want no peers. I didn't want a man. I didn't want a non-Black. I needed an older Black woman who done been there, done that. And it was so liberating. And I'm grateful that even in this conversation that we can speak to that need and how even we can mask up in our therapy sessions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And another thing that I want to celebrate before we wrap is that you talk about journaling. And of course, Oprah always talks about that. But I have, like yourself, I've been a journaler. Now, I didn't journal for the last 2 or 3 days, and I have to do a brain dump because I've been like, why am I feeling I'm like, oh, yeah, I haven't journaled.
I haven't released it.
I haven't. Yes. And it could be in the margins. And, oh, yeah, I forgot to say that, but I'm going to say that thought on the last line. It doesn't make sense with everything else, but I had to get that out. But I'm really grateful for you and who you've become and who you're becoming. And I do know that you are an actress. Can we talk about that very quickly and where you are in that career path and how people can stay connected with Dom Skinner?
Yay. So yes, I am an actress, and I've been doing a lot of projects with my really good friend, David Anthony Butler. And it's very indie right now, but I've been doing some auditions. And I'm actually part of a storytellers community as well. So we're all writers, actors, producers, directors, and we bring our stuff to each other so that we can continue to craft sharpen our blades, our skills. And so I've been writing a lot because I do realize that I want my own TV show and I want to create opportunities for myself and for others. And I realize that I want to be able to use my voice in a way that help people heal and see themselves in themselves. I hope I said that right. I want Black people specifically to know that healing is available, and it doesn't have to be just Black family drama. It can be, how do we, in our Black family drama, move towards wholeness and forgiveness and healing? And I'm excited for that. So I'm writing the script. I will be pitching it very soon. But in the meantime, I'm creating with my friends. My friends have production companies. And so whenever they say, hey, we're doing a new project, I'm saying, yes, let's do it. So you can always follow me on Instagram, because a lot of the things that I'm doing is always posted there, and the people that I am partnering with is always posted there as well. My website is wordsbydom.com, and I will be posting new projects on there as well. We have a new project coming out this summer. It's a series called Single Single,
Okay.
and I'm part of that. So yeah, that's what I'm doing: writing, creating, and helping friends.
I love it. I totally love it. And I love your magical words, Dom. You are inspirational. Isn't she though? She's amazing. Totally amazing. And shout out to you again with TC. Christy, thank you so much for this amazing platform. Dom, thank you for sharing so much of yourself with us. Thanks both you ladies for being such a blessing and touching our lives. Thank you as well. Oh, I got one good question. This is coming from the M Town, from the 901, from Memphis. One of my girls, Miss Collins, said, "Is the woman on your book cover you or your mother?"
It is me. It is me. But I've been told that I have her face.
Wow.
So it's some of her, because
Yeah.
I came from her.
But the photography is actually you. Wow. Well, thank you
Amazing.
so much. I'm in agreement with TC. Thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself with us tonight. I'm really grateful once again for us making this connection. Anytime you want to come and chit chat with me in any way, please, honey, just come through. And if I end up, I used to live for a split second in LA. And there's been some recent life changes, and some friends are like, "Are you coming back to LA?" So if I come visit, I'm because I need to put my toe in the water. So I'll definitely make sure I connect to you.
Sunday. So when you come, we can go to the beach.
Oh, yay! Okay, Mr. Brian Harper, you're welcome. Thank you so much. It's been a joy for me to host her, and truly, I'm inspired. That's how inspirational it has been. So I thank you all for hanging out with me. And actually, I'm not done yet. I'm going to actually be going over to Instagram at around 6:30 and talk to another actor who was originally from New York, who lives in Los Angeles. And you all might need to connect because he's doing some work out there too. He might be, or you might already know him. Jonathan A. Wait a minute. How did I just? Okay, y'all go to Instagram, The Christy Taylor Show. He's on my page right beside your sister.
Okay.
Your niece. Jonathan, I'm going to be talking to him at 6:30 over there on Instagram, The Christy Taylor Show. Of course, follow me on all my social. And of course, you can learn everything you want to know about me going to my website, ChristyTaylorConsulting.com. There's a lot I got going on, but I tell you, one of the things I absolutely love is talking to interesting people. And Dom, you are an amazing and very interesting person. And I have been delighted tonight. I've been totally delighted. This has been delightful. Yeah. All right. Any last words before we go?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for everyone who joined. And people can follow my work at wordsbydom.com. Also, I have a YouTube channel called Words by Dom, where I give just my thoughts as I'm healing, and to also support you all in your healing journey as well. So follow me, be inspired even more if you want. And I love y'all. I love y'all so much. Thank you. This was such a treat to my heart.
Thank you. Thank you. Blessings, everybody. Much love. Much love.